Imagine a world where the temperature plummets below freezing every single night, snow piles up outside your cave, and you don't have cozy blankets, central heating, or even the flick of a switch to keep warm. Yet somehow, our prehistoric ancestors not only survived those brutal winters, they slept soundly through them. How did cavemen manage to stay warm enough to sleep when the cold alone could kill? The answer lies in a mix of ingenious survival strategies, natural instincts, and surprisingly clever techniques that modern science is only just beginning to fully understand. Picture this: the icy wind howls outside, rattling through the trees, while inside a dark, rocky cave, a small family of early humans prepares to rest. To us, it might seem impossible to sleep soundly in such harsh conditions, but for cavemen, the cave itself was nature's bed. Caves weren't just random shelters, they were natural insulation chambers. Unlike the outside world, where the temperature could drop dangerously low, caves maintained a more stable climate. The thick rock walls held onto the day's warmth, creating a buffer against freezing winds. Even a few degrees warmer inside meant the difference between life and death during the Ice Age. But cavemen didn't rely on caves alone. They understood, instinctively, the power of insulation. Archaeological evidence shows that they used layers of dried grass, leaves, and moss as bedding, which not only softened the hard stone floor but also trapped body heat. Imagine a primitive mattress, made entirely of what the earth provided. On top of this, they layered animal furs, thick hides from mammoths, bison, or bears, creating a cocoon that kept warmth close. Fire, of course, was the ultimate game changer. A carefully tended fire inside the cave provided more than just heat. It gave light, protection from predators, and a psychological sense of safety. Early humans likely slept in shifts, ensuring the fire never went out. And interestingly, smoke from the fire also drove away insects, adding another layer of comfort to their rest. So, the caveman's sleeping environment was a carefully constructed system. Stone for protection, plants for padding, furs for insulation, and fire for warmth. It wasn't luxury, but it was survival, perfected. If you step back and imagine the scene deeper, you'll notice that cavemen didn't just plop down anywhere inside a cave. They were strategic about where they slept. The placement of their bedding mattered. Archaeologists have discovered sleeping areas tucked far enough inside caves to avoid chilly drafts, but not so deep that ventilation was cut off. It was a balance, warmth without suffocation. They also used the cave floor in clever ways. Some sites reveal evidence of shallow pits dug into the ground, filled with insulating materials like straw, moss, and fur.
Why?
Because cold air naturally sinks, and raising themselves slightly off the ground, even by a few inches, protected them from losing body heat. Think of it like an ancient version of a camping cot. Another fascinating detail is how fire was positioned. Cavemen weren't reckless about open flames inside their shelters. They built hearths, small controlled fire pits, often placed in central spots to spread heat evenly. In colder regions, evidence suggests that stones were heated in the fire and then arranged around sleeping spaces to radiate warmth long after the flames died down. It was like prehistoric central heating. Welcome to Before Flame. Fire. If you enjoyed traveling back in time with me, don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you never miss the next journey into our ancient past. Now I'd love to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it right now? It'll make me so happy to see our community connecting from all around the world. And most importantly, if this video make you just imagine the Stone Age, or actually feel what it was like to live as a caveman. Share your thoughts below. I'm excited to read them all. And we can't forget the importance of airflow. Too much smoke could be deadly, so cavemen likely chose caves with natural vents or openings that allowed smoke to drift upward and out. This tells us they weren't just surviving, they were adapting with intelligence and observation. What we see here is the birth of human comfort engineering. The environment itself became a tool, shaped and optimized for rest. And even in the harshest winters, this combination of natural shelter, strategic design, and resourceful fire use turned a freezing cave into a surprisingly warm bedroom. Now, here's something fascinating. Cavemen didn't just rely on caves. In regions where caves were scarce, they built temporary shelters from branches, bones, and hides that worked almost like portable homes. Think of large animal bones forming a frame, with thick hides stretched over them, creating an insulated hut that could block wind and trap heat. This resourcefulness meant they could adapt their bedroom to wherever food and survival demanded. Over time, these shelters became more sophisticated. Layers of grass and furs were added inside, forming a snug nest that mimicked what animals like wolves or bears did in the wild. Cavemen, after all, were expert observers of nature. If a bear could hibernate through brutal winters, why not copy its den-making strategies? And while warmth was critical, safety played a huge role too. Sleeping arrangements weren't just about comfort, they were about survival. Fires kept predators at bay, but the choice of bedding materials also mattered. For example, thick layers of greenery or smoke from the hearth could help repel insects and parasites. Early humans instinctively crafted sleep environments that minimized threats, allowing them to actually rest instead of constantly being on alert. When we put all this together, what emerges is a picture of ingenuity. Cavemen weren't shivering helplessly in the cold. They engineered their nights with what little they had. Stone walls became insulation, fires became heaters, and plants and furs became bedding that rivals some of today's rustic camping gear. So the next time you snuggle into a modern mattress under a cozy blanket, remember this: your ancestors were already experimenting with the very first beds. And thanks to their creativity, they transformed freezing caves into sanctuaries of warmth and rest. Close your eyes and picture this: a glowing fire flickers inside a cave, shadows dancing along the walls. Around it, not one person, but an entire group of cavemen huddles close together. Children tucked between adults, elders resting on the outer edges, all pressed shoulder to shoulder under shared furs. This wasn't just a scene of family life, it was one of the smartest survival strategies humans ever developed. For early humans, body heat was one of the most reliable sources of warmth. Alone, a single person could freeze in the bitter cold of winter nights. But together, huddled in close proximity, their combined warmth created a natural heating system. In fact, scientists call this social thermoregulation, the act of using shared body heat to maintain a safe temperature. It's the same reason penguins in Antarctica cluster together in massive huddles, rotating positions so everyone gets a turn in the warmer center. Sleeping in groups also created a sense of security. Imagine drifting off to sleep while predators roamed outside. Being surrounded by others meant you weren't just relying on your own senses. Someone was always near, and that reduced stress, which in turn helped the body rest more deeply. And while cavemen may not have had the scientific language for REM cycles, they knew instinctively that better sleep meant sharper minds and stronger bodies for survival. Interestingly, evidence suggests that sleeping arrangements weren't random. Families or tribes likely positioned themselves strategically, stronger individuals on the outside, children and weaker members in the middle. This created both a physical barrier against cold drafts and a protective shield against threats. In short, community was warmth. It was comfort. And it was survival woven into every night's rest. Sleeping in groups wasn't just about keeping warm. It shaped the psychology and nightly rituals of early humans. When you think about it, sleep is a vulnerable state. Eyes closed, defenses lowered, the world outside could still be dangerous. But in a group, vulnerability transformed into trust. That sense of "we are safe together" became just as important as the warmth of shared body heat. Anthropologists believe that the nightly gathering around the fire wasn't silent or dull. Before drifting off, early humans likely shared stories, passed down knowledge, or even sang. These rituals weren't just entertainment. They built bonds, reinforced trust, and reduced anxiety. Knowing the group was close and the fire was burning lowered stress hormones, making it easier to fall asleep despite the harsh environment outside. There's also evidence that group sleeping encouraged a kind of natural shift work. Not everyone slept at the same depth or at the same time. While some dozed lightly, others entered deeper sleep, meaning at least one person was always somewhat alert. This staggered rest cycle provided a built-in alarm system, a way to guard against predators or sudden threats without needing designated guards. Modern science actually supports how powerful this communal sleep setup was. Studies show that humans sleep more peacefully when they feel socially secure, while loneliness or isolation can trigger restless, fragmented sleep. Cavemen didn't have psychology textbooks, but they instinctively built their nights around community, safety, and shared responsibility. So, when they gathered in circles, cocooned under layers of furs, they weren't just surviving the cold. They were reinforcing their social fabric, teaching the next generation, and strengthening the tribe, all while resting side by side. What's fascinating is how this communal way of sleeping shaped who we are today. Human beings are social by nature, and some of that instinct traces back to nights spent huddled together for warmth and safety. Even now, think about how comforting it feels to share a blanket, to camp out with friends, or to nap beside a loved one. That deep sense of connection is ancient, carved into our biology by thousands of years of group sleeping. Archaeological evidence even hints at social hierarchies in sleeping arrangements. Leaders or hunters may have taken outer positions, both as protectors and as status markers, while children and vulnerable members occupied the safest, warmest middle. These arrangements weren't random. They were part of the unspoken order that kept the tribe functioning smoothly. Beyond warmth and safety, group sleeping also encouraged cultural continuity. Around the fire, stories, myths, and survival knowledge were passed down. Bedtime became the setting for oral traditions, lessons about hunting, warnings about predators, even spiritual tales explaining the mysteries of the night sky. What started as survival soon evolved into culture, creating shared meaning within the group. And here's something modern science confirms. When humans sleep close to one another, their heart rates and breathing patterns can sync up. This synchronization fosters calm and connection, much like a parent rocking a child to sleep. Cavemen may not have measured heartbeats, but they experienced that calming effect every night, drifting off to the rhythm of shared breath. So, in the freezing winters of prehistory, warmth came not only from fire and furs, but from each other. Together, cavemen didn't just survive the night. They built the foundations of human community itself. By now, we've seen how cavemen relied on caves, bedding, fire, and community to survive the coldest nights. But here's the surprising part: they didn't stop there. Early humans developed clever little hacks to squeeze every bit of warmth from their environment. And some of these tricks are so effective, survivalists still use them today. One of the simplest but most ingenious methods was the use of heated stones. After building a fire, cavemen would place large stones in or around the flames. Once the rocks absorbed enough heat, they were carefully moved closer to sleeping areas. Throughout the night, those stones slowly released their stored warmth, acting like primitive hot water bottles. Imagine lying down on furs with a line of radiating stones by your side. Suddenly, winter doesn't feel so unbearable. Positioning also mattered. Cavemen likely experimented with how they slept to reduce heat loss. Curling into a fetal position, for example, minimized the body's surface area exposed to cold air. When sleeping in groups, they may have layered themselves strategically, with weaker members in the middle, not just for safety, but because it trapped body heat most efficiently. Then there was clothing. While they didn't have tailored jackets or layered sweaters, cavemen were skilled at wrapping themselves in furs. Some hides were worn throughout the night, while others were spread out as shared covers. These weren't just for warmth, for also provided a barrier against dampness, which could otherwise chill the body and lead to illness. What's striking here is that none of this was accidental. Cavemen observed, experimented, and refined these survival tricks until they worked. They weren't just sleeping, they were innovating. Beyond bedding and fire, cavemen tapped into other resources of nature, including food. Believe it or not, diet played a role in how warm they stayed through the night. Consuming fatty meats from animals like mammoths or bison provided slow-burning energy, which kept their bodies producing heat for hours while they slept. Just like how modern hikers eat high-calorie meals before camping in the cold, cavemen instinctively fueled their bodies to turn food into warmth. Fire itself also became more than just a glowing flame. Cavemen were masters at positioning it to maximize heat without burning through precious wood too quickly. Some researchers suggest they built partial barriers, like stone circles or even makeshift windbreaks, to trap and reflect heat toward their sleeping spots. In some cases, they may have even built two fires, one for warmth and one for light and protection, ensuring their cave or shelter was heated evenly throughout the night. Then there's the matter of insulation. We've already touched on furs and bedding, but cavemen sometimes took it a step further. Evidence points to them using layers of mud or clay along shelter walls to block drafts and hold in warmth, almost like primitive insulation in a log cabin. Even the smallest tweaks, blocking a cave opening with hides, sealing cracks with earth, or lining the floor with multiple layers of plant matter, could raise the temperature inside their shelter by several degrees. What this shows us is that survival wasn't about brute strength alone. It was about small, thoughtful adjustments. Cavemen were constantly finding ways to stretch their resources and hack their environment, turning the freezing outdoors into something resembling a livable, even comfortable, space. Perhaps the most remarkable survival hack of all was how cavemen turned their own instincts into tools. For example, they didn't always sleep in long, uninterrupted stretches like we do today. Many anthropologists believe they practiced segmented sleep, dozing in shorter cycles, waking to tend fires, adjust bedding, or check on the safety of the group. This flexible rhythm ensured they never strayed too far from warmth or security. Even sleeping positions themselves became clever adaptations. Families and groups often curled up in clusters, much like animals in the wild. In some colder climates, they may have even created semi-enclosed nests of branches, hides, and stones that wrapped around their bodies, minimizing exposure to drafts. These weren't random habits, they were deliberate strategies to conserve heat. And then, there's the mental side of warmth. Rituals before sleep, storytelling, chanting, or even rhythmic drumming did more than bond the tribe. They likely helped reduce stress and regulate breathing, both of which conserve energy and maintain body heat. A calm, connected group simply slept warmer and deeper than an anxious, scattered one. What ties all these hacks together is ingenuity. Cavemen didn't have technology, but they had observation, trial and error, and a fierce will to adapt. Heated stones became their radiators. Animal hides became their blankets. Fire became their thermostat. And the group itself became the ultimate insulation system. So when we look at these ancient tricks, it's clear, cavemen weren't just enduring winter nights, they were mastering them. Their survival wasn't luck, it was innovation. And in many ways, those same principles still guide how we stay warm today, from insulated homes to sleeping bags.